you see people like they're just getting miracles, and you're thinking, well, why not me?
Like after countless times of praying for healing and asking for healing and all that kind of stuff, and it just wasn't happening.
I was in youth and I believed, and I was wearing contact lenses on the day. I took them out and I was like, this is going to happen for me today.
Let's talk about. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Series 2 of Let's Talk About. Previously, Let's Talk About Chronic Illness. So today we are going to be talking about faith, and I am joined by my brother-in-law, Alex. So would you mind just introducing yourself?
Sure, as you said kindly, I am Alex. On screen, you may see it as Alclem, just because I think that's funny. I am 28 years old. I'm married to Rebecca's sister, and I have a visual impairment called juvenile retinoschisis. It's a retinal condition which is something I was born with and cannot be improved with current medical techniques, which effectively means that the things I see are not as clear as what other people see, whether it's up close or further away. Things are just not as sharp or as detailed as they could be, meaning things like reading things from afar or even reading things on a menu in a restaurant can be very difficult.
Cool. Thank you for that. And yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I am Becca. I am 24 and I have a chronic illness called ME, which stands for myalgic encephalomyelitis. Causes fatigue and pain, so I am an ambulatory wheelchair user. So, as I said, today we're going to be talking about faith. So, we are both Christians, so we'll be kind of talking about it from that point of view. But I do feel like hopefully a lot of what we talk about can kind of probably be applied to other faiths as well. And I guess even if you don't believe in God, you probably still have experience with some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So I don't know whether you maybe just want to share a bit about kind of you being a Christian and maybe like talk a bit about how you feel with your faith and your disability, how those two have kind of crossed over.
Sure. Well, I was born into a Christian household, and yeah, from then I grew up in church. Obviously, there are challenges to faith at the end of the day, because you sort of, the more you're in church, the more you see the workings, and you see people like it's their first time and all of a sudden they're just getting miracles, and you're thinking, well, why not me? And that can be really challenging because it can lead you easily down a path of, am I praying enough? Am I doing the right thing? Do I believe strongly enough? It then leads to doubt. Is this actually happening? Are people making things up? So there's so much that can go through your mind, especially growing up with that. Yeah, it's a definite roller coaster, but ultimately I'm so thankful that I've gone through that and I still hold faith.
Yeah, awesome. But yeah, kind of similar with me in terms of I was born into a Christian family, have been to church my whole life. I definitely feel, yeah, kind of similarly that it's difficult when you kind of see other people being healed or experiencing miracles and stuff, and you're not experiencing that yourself. I definitely found it was like after countless times of praying for healing and asking for healing and all that kind of stuff, and it just wasn't happening. I definitely went through a period of completely doubting. I just didn't really believe in God, didn't really know if like he was there or kind of anything like that, because it is difficult when you're not experiencing that healing that other people talk about to kind of question, is it something that I'm doing wrong? Should I be praying more? Have I not done enough?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. I wanted to talk a bit about prayer generally, kind of praying for healing, but I also feel like it would be quite interesting to talk about kind of unsolicited prayer and unwanted prayer. I do feel like there's sometimes this idea that, or like this assumption that everyone who is disabled or ill wants to be healed. And I have heard stories of people who aren't Christian, who are in wheelchairs or have a visible disability, of people just going up to them and going, I'm going to pray for you. So I thought it'd just be kind of interesting to talk about our views on that and kind of your, I guess, your experience
Sure.
with prayer. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I I haven't encountered it, I'd say, myself. When it comes to prayer and prayer for others, I've never been one. I know that, for instance, I was in church yesterday, and people come up to you and they see sort of a like, well, obviously there's invisible things and there's visible things. I've got a back issue at the moment, so walking around with the Zimmer frame, people come up and see a person my age and said, "What's happened?" And so you just give them the information. And then in a church setting, oftentimes like the person will like say, "Oh, in Jesus' name, be healed." Put their hand either near you or on you or anything like that. And in a church setting, for whatever that is, and for someone they know, I see no issue with that. But I've never been a person to do that myself. I've never really been comfortable with doing anything like that. It's just never really been me. Praying for others has never really been my strong suit. It's hard to say, but I very much understand when people are hesitant to it, because I think a lot of people who are so heavily in the church don't understand sometimes is that the way that things can come across can be extremely strange and weird to an outsider. But you also need to think that if God has really put you there to pray into someone's situation, he has almost certainly prepared them for that.
Yeah.
They are likely in a place that they are needing that.
Hmm.
So obviously there are cases where sometimes it's something you take a step of faith and you do that. And even though someone may not want it, it may make them think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I'm definitely also not one for praying for others out loud, and I don't think that's
No.
a bad thing. Um, and yeah, I agree absolutely that, like if you feel kind of called to pray for someone, there's definitely a reason for that. But I think there's definitely kind of a way to go about it. I think
Oh yeah.
if you see somebody in a wheelchair and you feel called to pray for them, then you go up to them and go, is there anything that I can be praying for you? Rather than kind of posing it
Mm.
as, I would like to pray for healing over you, rather than, I don't think it's right to make that assumption straight away that
Mm.
that's what it is that they want. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people probably think like, oh, that person, I feel called to pray for them, and will then just assume that it's going to be for healing when that might not actually be
Yeah.
what they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, if you consider in my situation, there's two things going on. It's my visual impairment and my back currently, and you can see what's going on with my back. But equally, in my life, I believe the biggest difficulty for me is my vision,
Yeah,
and so it's a case that if someone comes up to me and says, "Can I pray?" It's like, yeah, pray for all of me, please.
yeah,
Do it all.
yeah,
But yeah, sometimes it could be a case that that person you're praying for, in your mind, you go, well, that's obvious. That's what they're after. But
yeah,
it might not be the thing that they are wanting. Sometimes it could be that in their life, they haven't got peace.
yeah.
In their life, they are struggling with something internally and
Hmm.
you don't know.
Yeah.
And so there are certain ways about it, absolutely. And sometimes then it's just about the words, or just going up to someone and saying, how are you today?
Yeah.
And just sparking up a conversation, because that equally can be helpful. Just speaking.
I, yeah, I feel like when it comes to prayer now for kind of healing, for me, I don't find that terribly helpful for me personally for people to pray. Like for specific things, like if I'm having a particularly bad like patch of pain, then
Hmm.
yes, I will ask people to pray that that improves. Or if like, yeah, if I'm in like a particularly bad spot with my
Hmm.
ME, then I will ask for prayer for that. But as kind of a whole thing,
Hmm.
I don't find it helpful anymore to ask for people to pray, and I generally ask people not to pray for kind of healing of me, not because I don't believe that I can be healed, and I certainly want to be, but I think that there kind of reaches a point after you've asked for healing so many times and it hasn't happened, that it's almost like you have to get to like a point of acceptance. And I'm going to do a whole nother episode about grief, but I do feel like grief almost kind of comes into the topic of faith a
Yeah.
bit, because it's almost like if you're constantly asking for healing and waiting for that to happen, do you think it potentially can prevent someone from getting to that point of acceptance of kind of their
Mm.
situation? Like, what do you think about that?
It's a difficult one,
Mm,
really, because at the heart of the situation is what people are wanting. For instance, myself, I from when I was younger, I'd be in Sunday school and they'd get to the end of the service and then they would start to pray for healing for people. My dad would come up every single time, bring me down from the upstairs where we were doing the Sunday school to bring me to the front. Standing at the front so many times, and just and I know that the people who were sort of like in charge, the pastors, ministers, they're all like, it was just massive prayers and just big hope. And I was just, every time that would happen, and obviously praying, close your eyes, I just hope that when I open my eyes, something would change. Um, and when it never does, that does hit you and hit you and hit you.
mhm.
And that's difficult. I remember even one time that I was in youth, and I believed, no, I was wearing contact lenses on the day. I took them out, and I was like, "This is going to happen for me today." And of course, you get to the point where it doesn't, and you think, "What more can I really do?" Um, but equally, I know that my situation, as it is, has led me to where I am today.
Mhm.
If I was able to, if I was able to see better, I'd be able to drive. If I was able to drive, my situations of where I was living, where I've been working, what I've been doing would all be different. And at the end of that, I likely wouldn't have met the person I'm married to now, of which I'm extremely happy. And obviously, having these things in our life, he'll never give us a situation we can't deal with.
Mhm.
And that's always good to know.
Yeah.
And so, keeping that in mind, I know that as much as I can get angry or frustrated, why not me? Why not me? Any direction I go, I know that there is someone on my side wanting the right thing for me.
Yeah.
And so far, I'm getting curveballs left, right, and center, but holding faith is the best thing you can do.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I do feel like that actually leads very nicely onto something else which I wanted to talk about, which was kind of finding purpose. And kind of, I guess, part of the acceptance is kind of reaching the point of understanding that actually everything does happen for a reason, and ultimately God won't give us more than He believes that we can handle. Um, and it can, I'm not suggesting that it's really easy for anybody to go, oh yeah,
No.
that's why I haven't been healed. I'm definitely still on that journey myself of questioning why and trying to work out why. But then there will just, I imagine for most people, there'll just be like that one thing that actually it's like, actually, if I'd been healed, that thing wouldn't happen. And I wouldn't now be doing that which I love, or I wouldn't have met that person who I love.
Mm.
Um, and I think there's something so powerful about that, kind of looking for
Mm.
the purpose, and yeah, the kind of understanding that things do happen for a reason. And I feel like everything happens for a reason is such like a cliche thing, and a lot of
Yeah.
some people disagree with that and don't really understand what the reason is, but and that's okay. Like I don't think everybody needs to have found the reason or needs to agree with that. But I do think that kind of that comes from faith ultimately, is the
Yeah.
faith in knowing that like it's going to be okay kind
Yeah.
of thing. um in some Christians, in some kind of de de denominations, there is kind of this idea that if you experience any like serious ailment or anything like that, then it's you
Yeah.
being punished for something. And that's just something that I just do not agree with at all. And I'm very lucky
No.
that there's no one really in my life who is of that thinking. But
Yeah.
I think that's quite a damaging mentality. Um, that I feel like is potentially one that sways people who aren't Christian away from the Christian faith because that's quite like a loud presence kind of
Yeah,
within the media is this idea that Christians will pray for you to be healed and that they don't believe that you should be ill. And if you are ill, they believe it's because you've done something wrong. And I
yeah,
do feel like I'm hoping that through this conversation, we're showing that not everybody feels that way.
yeah. It's there's many factors of that. It could be how someone's been brought up, what their church was like, and some people will see things in a different way. Someone who's going out and thinking that everyone isn't as they should be has had that viewpoint from something, which can be problematic, as you said, because not everyone is like that. And I think that can be said for anything. It can be said for, um, let's say, a really random example, fans of football clubs.
Mhm.
A lot of people can see those people as rowdy, unruly. However, there's many that go, and the majority that go are likely just there to have a nice time, spend time with family, enjoy the game. But no one ever sees anything of that
Mhm.
because it's not interesting.
Yeah,
The interesting often comes to the surface. The extraordinary often comes to the surface. It's the duty of everyone else to not necessarily speak as loudly, but speak more clearly to those around them, because the people we're going to impact most in our lives are the people around us.
yeah, definitely. And I 100% agree with what you were saying there, that it's always kind of the extraordinary that kind of comes to the surface and is shown the most. And I feel like that actually relates so much to kind of what we're talking about in terms of it can be so easy to, if you haven't been healed or you haven't experienced a miracle, feel like you're the only one
Hmm.
because it's always those extraordinary stories of people experiencing healing,
Yeah,
miracles. They're the stories that are always spoken about. No one really talks about the stories of people who don't experience healing or the stories of
yeah,
people who don't want to experience healing or all of those kind of things. I feel like it's really important for everyone to remember that just because you're not seeing it doesn't mean it's not happening. Um, and just because all you're seeing is all these people being healed or experiencing miracles, it doesn't mean that you're the only person who isn't. It's just that
yeah,
no one really talks about that as much. Um, I feel like that's just a really important kind of point to make.
yeah.
Do you ever feel like you've been in a point where like you've seriously questioned your faith, or do you feel like you've kind of been quite steady throughout your life?
There are definitely peaks and troughs, as people say in life. Um, I've had points where I've been firmly believing right there in the moment, and there have been times where where I have gone back and thought maybe not. But I I look around at the world around me, and I can't explain how it can be here without someone there. Just even the fact that I'm speaking into this microphone here, looking at a camera, talking to you in a different country, because, well, technically a different country, but it's still the UK. The fact that we're doing this and the capabilities that have come to this, I can't believe that it's just the result of something happening. And even if that were to be the case, I can't wrap my head around saying, so what started it? People say the Big Bang. Well, what was before that? And then if someone gives me an answer, well, what was before that? And I know that the only answer to me that makes any sense is the fact that God is not based in time. And so that's to a point of where I think there has to be something.
So we ran out of time on the um, Zoom call before I got a chance to really answer the question of whether I've questioned my faith. So I'm just adding that bit in. Obviously, throughout the whole conversation, I talk about the fact that I have questioned my faith, and definitely, probably about 3 years ago, for a good 18 months, for 2 years, I would say, I went through a really, really rough patch with my faith. I do feel like I went through a full on kind of crisis of faith. Um, just completely lost it really with my faith and just didn't necessarily know whether I believed in God anymore or anything like that. Um, Kind of, as I've said, after so many times of asking for healing and it just wasn't happening, I just really started to question if God was really there, and if he was, why he wasn't healing me. And it was definitely a really, really difficult time. But I feel really lucky and grateful that I had some amazing friends who supported me during that time and kind of helped me to find my way back to my faith. But I think that it's important to remember that it's completely normal to question whether you have a chronic illness or a disability or not. As humans, we are kind of naturally curious, and I think that it's only natural that you do kind of question things at different times. And I think it just so happens that going through a disability or a chronic illness can kind of heighten those feelings. And yeah, as I said, I've kind of reached a point of acceptance with my faith where I'm very kind of confident in my faith and strong in my faith, and also a point of acceptance with regards to my health, where I don't really like to pray for complete healing because I just don't know whether I really believe that that's going to happen for me, and whether or not I feel okay about that is kind of a conversation for another time, I think, probably in the grief episode. But I think that if I continue to pray and ask for healing and didn't experience it, I'm basically just setting myself up to fall back into questioning my faith and losing my faith. So yeah. I think kind of the final thing that we'll just kind of finish on is, do you have any advice for somebody who is either looking at faith or is a Christian or has a faith, who has a disability or a chronic illness and is struggling with understanding why they haven't experienced healing? Yeah, do you have any kind of advice for them?
I think the best thing I can advise is surround yourself with the right people, because if you are on your own and you're dealing with this around people who don't understand where you are, then that can be one of the most difficult things because you are dealing with it by yourself. But if you have questions, you need to ask them, because that is ultimately how we understand. Whether it's asking someone else, whether it's asking God in a prayer, sometimes you can get the answer right then and there. So that's my advice: is surround yourself with the right people. As much as it can feel like you don't want to, try and even just have a look online and say, I'm feeling like this. What what part of the Bible has this sort of thing in it? And you can find things like that. There are so many tools out there now that you don't need someone to say, oh, if you're feeling like this, you need to go to this part of the Bible. Even some Bibles you can buy have a thing that says, if you're experiencing loneliness, look in this. If you're experiencing sadness, go here. Grief, go here. And so it's ultimately surround yourself with the right people and don't give up.
Yeah, love that. And I think my advice, I mean, everything that Alex has said, but also just remembering that it's not anything that you have done or haven't done, I think is so
Mm,
important to remember that it's nothing that you've done wrong. It's not that you're not doing enough. You are doing everything that you can be doing, and you are enough as you are. Whether you experience healing or not, you're still a whole, complete person. And somehow, some way, you will find what your purpose is, even if it's not clear right now. Hopefully, one day it will become clear. And yeah, just keep the faith, really. Keep hoping, keep praying, just keep
yeah.
believing, and just remember that it's nothing that you have or haven't done, I think, is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for joining me
My pleasure.
for this. Hopefully it was really interesting. I certainly found it interesting and
Yeah.
insightful. So yeah, awesome. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like it, and please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And yeah, let me know in the comments any other episodes that you'd like to see.
Yeah, and if it comes that anyone's got any questions for either Rebecca or myself, ask away.
Yeah.
And then if there are any questions, just let me know.
Awesome. Yeah, and yeah, either leave them in the comments, or if they're a bit more private, there's a link to my Instagram. You can just drop me a message and I can share it with Alex. Um, yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much. And
Pleasure.
yeah, see you all again soon.